Tighten up.
Yep.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching the Tasty Pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
If you want to build a massive chest, you have to stop bench pressing right now.
Welcome to Heinz Seniors Coaching Up. Get access to the P3AK High Intensity Training ebook and its exclusive video tutorials. Commit with Heinz's coaching right now and be provided with a year of meal plans, training programs, and more. www.p3akday.com. There is no room for the littles.
Hey, this is the Game Triple H from the WWE. You're watching RxMuscle.com, the truth in bodybuilding.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave. Your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, training, diet, supplementation, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. A lot of exciting things going on. Of course, a couple of weeks ago, we had the Arnold Classic. This past weekend, the Boston Pro, the inaugural Boston Pro, and the feedback just absolutely off the chains. I was planning on going there, but I had a couple of games to announce, so I was not able to go up to Boston. But from everything that I heard and from everything that you read, absolutely first-class production. Absolutely top tier as far as a show. The production elements, the webcast, and obviously great competition all around. Of course, we have our coverage on the YouTube channel, and of course on Instagram. We have the Kuwait Pro coming up in just a matter of days this weekend, actually. That's going to have 212 on classic physique, men's physique. The next open class show is going to be the Arnold Brazil, which is in mid-April. So we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, we were just having this conversation off the air about the documentary, The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. And the conversation that it started to veer into is, back then with the 90s, right, with the basketball players, the NBA, they legitimately hated each other. We're talking about the psychotic work ethic of Michael Jordan, right? Just the fact that, he didn't just want to beat you. He wanted to kill you. He literally wanted to take your soul. And so you kind of drew a comparison as far as Ronnie Coleman in terms of the work ethic and the talent kind of intersecting at once. But my question to you was, and if you want to answer it now, just as far as the culture back then, we always talk about the 90s versus today in terms of physiques, but in terms of the sheer, competitiveness, in terms of the sheer, literal stick a knife in somebody and walk away kind of a thing. How would you compare that back in the 90s era to what you see today, which is a little bit more of a friendly natured banter and kind of a relationships between the competitors?
I think the guys today, it's a phony friendliness, because when you're bodybuilding, let's call it like it is. I was at that level, maybe not at the pro level, but I was at a very high level as well. And you respect the guys that you compete against, and you're nice to them because a lot of times you want to share knowledge with them and there's a friendship there, but at the end of the day, you want to beat those guys. You don't want to lose to anyone, So, is there a lot of love there? I think the guys become friends, and then a lot of times after they're done competing, they become even better friends because there was something that was shared there. It's hard, Jordan's friends with a lot of guys that he hated when he played basketball because they were competitors of him, and he's a very competitive guy. Dorian was ruthless. Arnold was the prime example of Ruth. Arnold would tell people the wrong advice, Dorian just wouldn't talk to anyone. And Ronnie was just so good, it didn't even matter. You could watch what he did, you still wouldn't be able to duplicate it. So different eras, I'm trying to think of who I would compare to. Ramy doesn't talk to anyone, so we don't even know what Ramy does, So he's not even in the picture. I think younger guys like Nick Walker, Hunter Labrada, they understand that they have superior genetics. So they can tell people everything they're doing, and it's not going to matter. People can copy it, and they're never going to catch up. It's like Jordan could have told everyone what he was doing, and no one's going to be as good as Michael Jordan. So, I think that, the younger guys today understand that they're going to make money from social media and from giving away information. And, I did that my whole career. And before, there was no social media. I just knew that at some point that I would be a coach or I'd be an information provider. I thought it was going to be through the magazines because I couldn't conceptualize social media. So I gave away a lot of advice online, and people would come to my house, and I would try to educate people because I didn't see them as a threat to me. I don't think I would ever have helped, Tony Freeman, with his diet while I was competing against him because I knew he had better genetics than me and he would beat me. So in a sense, there was some kind of like a competition going on. Bodybuilding is a weird sport because there's really the day of the competition, there's really no strategy. You're just going to go there and show your physique off. Whereas basketball, you get to the game, that's when it all starts. That's where the mind, game comes from. So Jordan needed to motivate himself to want to kill these guys so that he had that energy on the court to be able to put out 100%. So he had to create his own motive. It's like Kai Green. Kai Green always had to create motivation for himself to get on stage. He was always, one time he fell off the treadmill at the Arnold Classic, another time he was sick. He was always overcoming something. And I believe a lot of it was drama just because, once again, he wanted some kind of internal motivation to make him the best that he can be. Guys like Ronnie, nothing bothered them. He was just like, this is what I do. I love it. I give it 100%. I don't have to worry about anything. Guys like Flex Wheeler, admittedly, was a stress case before a show. And he would also have to, I think, create, rivalries in his head so that he would go there and do battle against these guys. And so everyone has their own mindset. Once again, I can never compare bodybuilding to any other sports because the day of the competition in bodybuilding, yeah, it's important to have your head together, but your body is what it is, you know what I mean? Of course, if you're a mental disaster, you can ruin your physique because you can have a lot of cortisol output, but your performance really is in the gym. It's not when you get to the stage.
Let's get to the questions. Of course, the first few questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question, which should you prefer, being on a 3-4 month mass program, then right into a 3-month prep program, or go right into a 4-month prep program after taking months off? In your opinion, which would give better results?
You're saying that they didn't have it worked out for a while and then they want to come back? Is that what the gist of the question is?
Yes. So, one would be a mass program into a prep program. The other one would be time off into a prep program.
Oh, I see what you're saying. In between the mass and the...
Yeah.
I like, especially for guys that are competing at a high level, I like to do the mass program right into the competition, program, and then clean them out after that. I just feel like sometimes if you do, unless you're doing a whole year of mass building and then you're going into contest prep, I'd probably give them some time off then. But if you're doing 6 months, 5-6 months of mass building into 4 months or 5 months of contest prep, then you go off. Because if you go off for 4, 6, or even 8 weeks between those two, there's going to be you're going to go backwards a little bit, and then you have to play catch up while you're dieting almost. So to me, that's not going to give you the best net results. The problem is that people do the mass, they do the contest prep, and then they don't want to go off because they think they're going to lose everything because they're mental cases, and they bridge or they stay on a little bit of HRT, and they never allow their receptors to regenerate themselves. They really don't give their body enough time to detoxify. So you have to go off after the competition. The irony of the whole thing is that you have so much gear in your system that the first 4 weeks you're off, quote off. You're really not off because you have all this stuff still in your system. So if you go off for 8 or 10 weeks, you're really only off for 4 to 6 weeks in reality. So, and that's nothing. No one's losing anything in a month as long as you're eating right and you're sleeping and you're training. So that to me is the right way to do it. Before you get to that level where you're competing, twice a year or whatever it is, or even once a year, regularly, you could probably do off, you can do off, periods during the year. But once you get into that, I'm competing at the nationals every year, it should be a year cycle, essentially. You're doing 5 months, 4 months, off 2-3 months, and then it repeats every year. The key is to get in that off period is to go to the doctor, get your blood work done, make sure your kidney function is coming back to normal, all your markers are coming down to normal, your blood pressure is normal, your blood sugars are looking good. Once everything's good to go, then you're ready to go back on. The problem is that if you stay on, okay, you're never going to go back to normal, those blood markers. Your androgen receptors are never going to restore themselves. So you got to get out of that mental hang up that you think you're going to lose something, okay? Because I know a lot of guys, especially guys in the 90s, went off cycle for 3-4 months and they came back. Look at Livroni. I mean, I know there's hyper responders, but even guys like myself and guys that were not as genetically gifted as some of these guys, we cleaned out and no one lost anything. It came back. It came back in a month. So take that for what it's worth.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. We're going to give you 4 variables when prepping, which would be considered first to last when making adjustments. Yeah. Diet, cardio, clen, T3. So first to last in terms of adjustments.
It's a loaded question because everyone's body is different. So I kind of go by instinct because I've been doing this a long time. So if I start someone out on a given program with, all right, let's say they're doing 20 minutes of cardio 5 days a week, they're eating this much food, maybe I started them on a little clenbuterol and I haven't even put any Cytomel or any kind of thyroid medication in yet. I'll probably say, you know what, if they're not losing weight right off the bat, probably bump their cardio first. If that doesn't seem to work and I'm looking at them and they look a little maybe too full, like they're not depleting, which they should be when you have them on a lower calorie diet, I might say, you know what, maybe I'm feeding them too much food. So I might cut back some carbs or cut back even some protein. A lot of times, people think they need to eat 1 million grams of protein and you just can't do that while you're dieting. It's too much, it's too many calories, it's too much food essentially, too much energy in the system. So I'll pull some of that back and a lot of times their weight will drop. So I change variables according to how people look. It's not like a computer program and you say, okay, this is the next step. They didn't lose 2 weeks in a row. I already raised cardio. I have to go to the next. No, you don't do that. You have to kind of go by how they look. If the person's really depleted and they're not really losing weight, then obviously it's not a carbohydrate thing because they're glycogen depleted. You got to change a different variable. Like I might give them more cardio or I might up the fat burners, at some degree. So that's why it's very hard. I can teach my Secrets to Becoming a Diet Guru course, which by the way, we're probably holding at the end of April. A lot of people have been asking about that. And I can teach you all the science of what's going on. But experience is something that I can't teach you. So once I give you all the knowledge, you got to go and coach people. And the longer you do it, the better your instincts get at changing the variables correctly. Okay, and that's what you'll figure out on your own. I can't teach you that. I can only teach you where to look for the variables, and then you have to just look for the clues and say, okay, yeah, he's right. This person looks a little too bloated in the face. Now, they could be cheating too. Your diet might be perfect, but they may be overeating. So a lot of times I'll ask people, write me a food diary. I want to see what you've been eating. Every morsel of food, condiment, liquid that goes into your body, you write it down and send it to me at the end of the day. And then I analyze it. And sometimes I'll say, oh, you know what? They're adding this condiment that it has, 20 grams of carbs in every serving time. They're putting it on their food and they don't even realize it. So there's the pitfall. I take that out. We fix the problem. So you got to be like a Sherlock Holmes detective when you're coaching people.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us, the handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time on YouTube, welcome. Hit the subscribe button below. Hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates, especially now that we're doing some more live programming, in particular Sunday nights with Heavy Muscle Radio, generally based with Dave, Chris Aceto, and then, with the variables, we'll add John Romano, Lee Priest, Carlo Filippone, sometimes King Kamali. Actually, that's kind of where we're going to go first on this one. But before we do that, just again, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. That helps. And as always, we appreciate all your support throughout the course of the year. Fitness through 7373. When are we going to get a King Kamali and Lee Priest series going?
Yeah, they're always talking about, what people don't realize is that, other people have lives essentially, aside from Lee. Lee's always available for me. We're friends. I can call him up in 3 seconds and say, all right, get on the show. We're doing a show. No, but Kamali's got his kids and he's busy sometimes. I would love to do a show with the two of them. I think it would be very funny. And so we'll try to put something together in the next month or two. I haven't spoken to them directly about like what their schedules are, but you know, it's hard because Lee's in Australia, so we have to make sure the times sync up. And Kamali likes, you know, has his kids at certain times of the week. So once again, it's more of a scheduling thing. You know me, I like to do creative stuff, and I'd love to get these guys on a show together. So we'll talk about that in the next coming weeks.
Let's go to B120. Have you ever used intra-carbs to load a competitor before they go on stage? If not, how do you think that would work? I've had people eating all kinds of things during the pump phase. So curious for your go-to. So I mean, interesting concept here. So it's essentially intra-workout nutrition, but loading them before they go on stage.
I'm assuming they're meaning like a shake, like some kind of like a carb, liquid carb to like you would use for intra-workouts, only using it prior to going on stage. The problem is that you don't really want to drink a lot of fluid before going on stage because, you know, it bloats you, basically. You know, you want to be dry on stage. So I wouldn't use liquid carbs probably backstage now. That probably wouldn't be something. Plus, you know what? When your hydration is low, it's hard to absorb very concentrated sources of carbohydrates too. So, you know, I would rather at that point just, if you're not loaded when you're backstage, you know, you really can't fix things at that point. You're kind of too late already, you know. You got to fix them before you get there and before you're completely dehydrated out of your mind, because insulin just doesn't work in your body. Even your own natural insulin does not work well when you're in a dehydrated state. So to try to force carbs into the muscle at that point is really just, you know, you're wasting your time essentially. So the question is, you know, what's the best way to carb people up? Well, I know Jason Orange used to always use my Carbolyze product. I think he still does when he first starts carbing guys. So they're depleted, maybe they make weight, or maybe they're about to start the carb up phase. He uses some liquid carbs initially just to kind of get the ball rolling, and then he goes to food, and that's, you know, that's fine. But you can't do liquid carbs backstage. It's just not going to work. It never works out. Whenever I see guys guzzling fluid because they think they don't have a pump, or they may be dehydrated, or they're cramping, it always ruins the way they look. Ask Ronnie Coleman at the 2001 Olympia. He was so dehydrated, he drank like 2 gallons of water before prejudging, and he looked like he drank 2 gallons of water before prejudging. By the night show the next day, he looked great, but you just can't. Once you've overdone it, you really can't fix it if it's that bad.
Do you watch the show Reacher on Amazon Prime?
No, I know what it is. I know Jack Reacher. I just don't watch it.
Yeah, Jack Reacher, right. So the main guy, what's his name? Alan Richson, I think. Alan Richson. Peepers 2001 says that, I guess in a recent article, it says that he's built his physique, mostly bodyweight exercises, but completely natural. So first of all, his question is, I mean, just I know I sent Tyler the link, so you're looking at pictures of him, his physique. Is that achievable in your opinion? Is that achievable naturally? And then second of all, in your opinion, I mean, his specific question is, do you know if any IFBB pros were approached for this role? But I'll take it a step further. I mean, you know, we really haven't seen too much of this lately. Do you see the acting thing really much of an avenue now for maybe men's physique athletes, classic physique athletes? Maybe the open class are a little too big, but for these kind of roles, do you see IFBB pros sliding their way back into these prime acting roles?
You know, it's the old natty or not, right? I mean, who knows what these guys do? No one's going to admit what they do anyway. I mean, so is he natural? He might be. You know, let me tell you something. I did a commercial once. It was I forget what it was for. It was for CarQuest, auto parts, and they were looking for football players. And when I got there, I looked like a gorilla compared to these other guys. There was all, and you know what? I saw the screen test they did. Skinny, ripped guys. Like, you could weigh 170 pounds. If you're ripped and you have abs, you look pretty big on camera. I look like you know, Mighty Joe Young on camera, which was great for that commercial, and that's why I landed it, because they had shoulder pads. They wanted me to look like this monstrous football player. But when they go for bodybuilders, every commercial I ever went for that was looking for a big bodybuilder, I never got it. And I would ask the director, I said, you know, I'm the biggest guy here, I'm in the best shape. They're like, you're too big. I'm like, why would you put on the thing big bodybuilder? Because we don't even know people like you exist. they think like that, you know, the men's physique guys are bodybuilders. That to them is a big bodybuilder. So this guy probably is not that big. He's in good shape. He's got nice big pecs, you know, which could be just genetic. And, you know, it's possible that he is 100% natural. You know, I wouldn't doubt it. He's just in really good shape. He doesn't look ridiculous. Having said that, why aren't we seeing more bodybuilders go into acting? I just think that a lot of bodybuilders are just not actors, and they don't want to give up bodybuilding to go to Hollywood, because Hollywood's going to say, hey, you're too big, lose 10, 15 pounds. No bodybuilder's going to do that. You know, Ferrigno had to do that for the Hulk, and that's why he lost his whole Olympia career, you know, because he said, you know what, Hollywood's more important. I think I can make more money in doing that. And so he downsized a little bit, but that was the real reason. You know, if they would have said to Dorian Yates, we're going to give you a starring role in some movie, but you got to lose, you know, 30 pounds of muscle, he would have said, fuck you, no way. Just like a lot of these bodybuilders have the opportunity to go into the WWE, and they just don't want to do it because they know if you're that big in the WWE, you're gonna get hurt. So you got to become athletic. You got to lose some weight. Your legs can't be that big. Bodybuilders love bodybuilding, and so, you know, also you have to be able to act. You know, so not many guys can act. A lot of guys just don't have that personality for it. It's something that you have to kind of work on. A lot of these guys go to acting school. Some people just have automatically great personalities, but it's not so easy. Go on a couple of auditions and you'll see. You know, you have to set yourself apart from other guys, and it's not just physique, because everyone has good physiques. You got to have something that these other guys don't have, and I think Arnold had that. Even though he couldn't speak English that well, he had that charisma, and I think that's what made it. You know, because there was a lot of great bodybuilders back then. How come Arnold's the only one who really made it in the movies? Because he had a personality, and so I think that's, you know, who's going to be the next big star? I think a lot of these new stars are coming from WWE because they do have bigger than life personalities. They are essentially acting every day when they're at the wrestling, you know, events, because they have scripts essentially. They have to, you know, memorize lines and stuff like that. So it's a natural progression for someone like John Cena to go into acting, or The Rock to go into acting, or, you know, Stone Cold Steve Austin to go into acting. Even Triple H did a few movies because it's natural for them to get behind a camera and do that type of stuff. You know, I thought really hard about going into acting because I was landing some commercials. I said, but they kept telling me, these guys said, look, you have a good voice, you have a good look, you could play a real good bad guy, but you're going to have to lose a lot of muscle. You're too big. You will make the other actors look ridiculous. And I just didn't want to do it. And so I said, you know what, I'll just do my little freak gigs, I called them, you know, like the Incredible Hulk and security guards, stuff like that, because I was living close to New York City, so I can hop on a train and do that. But I'm not going to sacrifice how I look to go down and try to seek, you know, Hollywood. Levrone tried, and Levrone's got a good personality. He got in a couple movies, small parts, but he found that also it's very hard.
Let's go to Ryan the Warrior. Whatever happened to Chris Cook? I remember he had a lot of hype and was supposed to be the next big thing. Then he just vanished. Have we ever got him on the show before? The question is, will you ever get him on? We haven't had him on before, have we?
Remember. I don't know if I got him on. I think I asked him if he would come on. And did I get him on? I don't even remember. I'm like, I interview so many people, said I can't even remember. Chris and I had that like rivalry going at the 2003 USA. He beat me slightly controversially. And he was not quite his best at that show. And then he came back and he won the super heavyweight class again the following year in 04. But he didn't get the overall, and he didn't get the pro card. Remember, they only gave out two pro cards. And then he went into the Nationals, and he won the Nationals. And he looked really good. That's when I think Chris Aceto was helping him. So I thought he was going to be a really good bodybuilder because I thought he had a really good look. He had a good structure. And then he went into MMA, and he just kind of left bodybuilding and disappeared. He's a good guy, though. I've talked to him since then. And, you know, Ed Connors, you know, still talks to him, and he's a family guy. And so I just think, you know, he didn't have the mindset that he wanted to continue doing it. And I thought that, you know, that was honest of him. You know, if you don't like bodybuilding, if you don't love bodybuilding, and you're not willing to sacrifice your whole life to be the best bodybuilder that you can be, it's not the right sport for you. It's absolutely, you have to love bodybuilding because it's too all-encompassing. There's too much dedication on a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days a year basis. If you can't put that, if you don't love it, there's no way anyone in their right mind will dedicate themselves to doing it, because it's too much. But if you love it and you would do it anyway, like most bodybuilders, even the top guys, would do it for free because they just love doing it. Those are the guys that do well in the sport.
Let's go to Lee Castro. The best way to speed up the metabolism while leaning out. So, I mean, he gives his own personal example: 3 days, 50 grams of carbs, and on the fourth day, 600 grams. So, I mean, I guess if you want to evaluate that, but in your opinion, or rather in your experience, best way of speeding up the metabolism while leaning out?
I think most people have their own genetic, I guess you could say, predisposition to how they respond to dieting. So some people, you have to cut carbs way down, okay? And it doesn't really speed your metabolism, it speeds up fat burning, okay? Because a cheat meal will definitely speed your metabolism up, but I know people who can eat a cheat meal and they gain 10 pounds and they don't lose it. I know other people who eat a cheat meal and 3 days later they're down 2 or 3 pounds. So everyone's body responds to eating higher carb loads differently. And so what works for one person doesn't always work for the next person. You have to evaluate, who the person is, what their metabolism is like. Like, I was the kind of guy, you feed me junk food and once a week, and my body's metabolism would go so crazy I couldn't even sleep at night. I'd be sweating, and it was like someone lit a fire under my ass, But other guys I've seen, they'll eat the same exact cheat meal, they'll have a couple burgers and fries, and the next day they look terrible. They're like bloated. It was like you completely ruined whatever was going on. And those people, that's just their metabolism. So I can't really give you a one size fits all answer to that question.
Let's go to Mr. Moore 55. He's going to be 67 years old on Saturday, so happy birthday in advance. Working out for 35 years, never did a cycle. I take all your supplements over 3 years now. Do I, at my age, need to take the same amounts as listed?
As listed in terms of like what I recommend?
Yeah.
Look, if you're working out hard and you're eating a lot of food, okay, number one, your body's need for vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, and macronutrients, which would be your protein, fat, and carbs, is dramatically higher than anyone else. Now, the reason why the minerals and vitamins and trace metals increase in terms of need is because all the chemical reactions that run our body, metabolizing carbohydrates, oxidizing fats, synthesizing new protein, they all require these minerals and vitamins as cofactors. In other words, in order for the chemical reaction to work, to do these things, you need them as ingredients, so to speak. Think of it almost as like, you could, when you make a cake, it's, what is it? It's like flour, it's eggs, it's sugar, but then there's other little like baking powder and all these other little assistory type of things that, vanilla extract. That's the vitamins and minerals. So if you don't have them in the right amounts, you're not going to be able to maximize what you're doing. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you're 80 years old or you're 30 years old. If you're doing the same type of training, and you're eating a lot of food and you're expecting your body to be able to, recover properly and your immune system to function well and for you to be healthy, yeah, you need the same amount of nutrition in terms of micronutrition. You might not need as many macros. You might be able to lower your protein or fat and carbs if you're older and you don't quite have as much muscle, but the chemical reactions still require all those vitamins, minerals, and trace metals.
Tom, for a couple of more questions, let's go to Thomas Guerra. Your favorite bodybuilder when you started doing bodybuilding?
Well, as a kid, I liked Lou Ferrigno because I was an Incredible Hulk like maniac. I loved that show. It was my favorite show. So definitely it was Louis. When I was competing and I was trying to achieve a certain level of a certain level at bodybuilding, I think it was probably Dorian Yates because he went beyond what anyone else had done. He took like what was thought to be unheard of, 300 pounds off season, fairly lean, and he achieved it. And when I saw what he did, that kind of unlocked the, I guess you could say, restrictions in my brain. Because I think what happens is we all have this upper limit of what's possible. Probably Haney was the upper limit for a very long time, the late 80s, all 80s and early 90s. People thought you couldn't get bigger than that, and I think that's why no one got bigger than that. And then Dorian went beyond that And actually, when he competed against Haney, he was really bigger than Haney. And then he went even beyond that when Haney retired. And I think was when I was just coming up. So that's what I kind of latched onto in terms of what I wanted to achieve physique-wise. He had that freaky hard conditioning. He had a lot of mass. Training was very important to him. He talked about his training a lot in the magazines and what he did to maximize less volume, heavier weights, full range of motion. And it just resonated with me. So I guess you could say Louis was like my idol, but Dorian was the guy that I wanted to emulate.
Alexander B. Carlson, if you added any other steroid to a TRT protocol, what would it be? Many quote gurus are talking about adding primo these days.
Yeah, primo is like the most. You know what the problem is? There's no real primo around. Most of it's fake. Most of it's just test propionate. Look, I sell those Roy test kits on my DavePalumbo.com website. People are constantly sending me the primo results. What is this? I said, look at the color chart. It's test propionate. So there's no primo. So I think primo has gotten this like cult status of being this like hard to get thing, and that it works great. Primobolan is like a long-acting Winstrol. That's about the strength of it. So it's to me, it's not really anything. I would not spend a lot of money on it. Put it that way. If you like the effects of Primobolan, you might as well use Winstrol. It's a lot cheaper, and you could take it in pill form if you want. As far as what I might combine with an HRT protocol that would not have any long-term health ramifications, that might give you some benefits. For a while, I was taking 100 milligrams of testosterone a week and 100 milligrams of Deca a week, which I was getting by prescription from a rejuvenation clinic. And the good thing about that is that rather than doing the 200 testosterone, I felt like the 100 and 100 gave me better results because I had bad shoulders, and the Deca really makes your joints feel really, really good. So if you don't have some guys are very sensitive to Deca and they get high prolactin levels, which kind of can kill their sex drive a little bit. But if you don't have any problems, and low dose Deca very rarely causes any of those problems, that's a nice tandem to take together. Maybe you do like a shot of Deca on Monday and a shot of testosterone on Friday, or you can do half your testosterone with half your Deca on Monday and half your testosterone and half your Deca on Friday. But low dose, so you're still in normal physiological range, but you just kind of get a little bit more performance boost from it. That's a much better solution.
Time for one more hard-hitting question. Alex Williamson, can you give us the secret to real New York pizza? Now, you've been in Florida now for the better part of 4 years now. Obviously, you've experienced firsthand the difference between a good slice of New York pizza and whatever it is that they have available down in Florida. The secret to real New York pizza.
I think the secret really is the sauce. I think if you have a good sauce recipe, the sauce really, to me, is what flavors the pizza. I don't even like the cheese that much because I'm lactose intolerant. A lot of times I even pull some of the cheese off of it. The sauce to me, and obviously the crust. But I think everyone's kind of got the crust down. We have bagels down here that I think they use like water machines that produce the same type of water you have in like it's more of an alkalinized water. But to me, the sauce makes the pizza. So if you have a really good sauce that you're using, your pizza is going to taste good because cheese is cheese. The crust is important, but I think, like I said, the pizza crust is not really, that's not like rocket science how to make pizza crust. The difference to me is the sauce. So I think that people in New York just know how to make sauce better. And I don't know why it doesn't translate, across, state lines, but it seems like the best sauce makers are up there.
To be honest, you've been in Florida now 3-4 years. You are lacking in the pizza consumption area, right?
Yeah. Well, we get a lot of pizzas, but we order a lot of Domino's. I'm embarrassed to say, but you know what? I get the flatbread pizzas at Domino's. I don't even get like real pizza. My kids eat the regular pizza. It's like basically like a pita, like a pita chip it's sitting on. So, because I'm not a huge carb eater, so I like the very, very thin crust. My grandmother, my father's mother, my Italian grandmother, used to make her own pizza. And once you eat a Sicilian Italian woman's pizza, you're ruined for life. There's nothing else that's going to taste as good as it ever. So it doesn't even matter to me anymore because I can't. When I think of the taste of that little square bread pizza we used to eat there, and then she had this sandwich pizza she made, and it was so good. And I really believe the reason it was so good is because she made the best sauce I've ever tasted in my life. And that's why I say what makes a pizza is really the sauce that you put on it. And she would cook the sauce for 3 days straight. I mean, how do you beat something like that? No one's doing that these days. She wouldn't tell anyone the recipe. So when she died, that was the end of the recipe. But once you eat that kind of authentic pizza, or even go to Italy. When I was in Italy with a couple years ago, with what was it called, Yamamoto,
San Marino, yeah.
They took me to an authentic Italian restaurant where everything was homegrown there, and they home cooked it. And you know what? It was like I was back in my grandmother's kitchen again, because that's how good it was. So once you've tasted real pizza, it doesn't even matter what you eat after that anymore.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder right now on the channel, last night's episode of After Hours, of course, Heavy Muscle Radio from Sunday night. Coming up this week, we have, of course, an all-new episode of Iron Rage, Lee Priest, and I don't know his name, JWoww's ex-husband, JWoww from Jersey Shore.
Roger.
So we're going to hear some of the wildest stories. There you go. We're going to hear some of the wildest stories from the Jersey Shore days, so you're not going to want to miss that. And then an interview with Ariel Kadar, the defending Arnold Classic fitness champion, Mr. Fitness International. So good to see her finally win one of those two big shows. And we will hear her thoughts this upcoming week. For Tyler Shore and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next week.